Hello everyone, Kirk here with Kirk's Motorrad Shop in Crystal Lake, Illinois, bringing you another video. It is not a video, however, on my beard. Okay, I'm going to be growing a beard this year because my wife wants me to. She likes the beard. I'm going to grow the beard. It's going to be on taking care of your motorcycle over the winter. So here in the Midwest, it gets extremely cold. We can't ride, unlike a lot of you guys in the country or around the world where you've got pretty much summertime conditions all year round. We unfortunately do not. We have about, here in Illinois, we've got about a 3 to maybe 4 month span of time where we really can't ride our motorcycles because there's snow or ice on the road. You definitely have salt on the road, and that is probably worse than riding in snow because it just gets into everything and rusts out. So I'm going to be getting my bike prepared here for storage for the winter. So this is a video that would definitely include long-term storage as well as just winter storage. So what are some of the things you want to do? Well, on this LT, I've already washed this bike. That is probably one of the most important things you want to do on your bike. I don't care if you ride even a GS. You guys that ride GSs, I know some of you are going to argue with me down in the comments. Oh, you'd never wash a GS because it's like some weird badge of honor to have dirt and garbage all over it and bugs everywhere. It's not, okay? It's just lazy, okay? You're just being lazy. If you're not washing your bike, it's like never washing your car. You probably wash your car, I bet. Well, take care of your bike, and it will take care of you while you're out on the road. Give it a good wax coating. Get those bugs off. You know, that's going to be super important to get the bugs off because they do leave little scars in the paint, especially for you guys that live maybe somewhere down south where you get those cursed love bugs. And those things are just made out of like some kind of weird acid that just etches paint. And if you've ridden through that area, maybe you've got some on your bike, you really want to take care of that. Get those bugs off and give it a nice coat of wax. Another thing you want to take care of is your windshield. So, you know, use a product, say, once you wash all the bugs off and everything, maybe use a product like Plexus or this 210. I found out that this product it's similar to Plexus. It's not Plexus, but it's similar. It's a plastic cleaner and polish. Use something, though. Some of you guys like Lemon Pledge. Go ahead. As long as it doesn't damage the plastic, that's another one. Here's a product here called Motul Shine and Go. It has a very lemony scent. This stuff is almost overpowering inside of an enclosed area. But, you know, you can use it to wash or sort of polish the bike up. It, you know, just gives you a quick polish. Another thing, if you have chrome on your bike, do take care of your chrome. Wax your chrome, because if it sits over the winter and you get a lot of seasonal change between, you know, humid days and cold days, you could definitely see some rust starting to happen, some pitting, light pitting, heavy pitting, whatever. Okay, definitely take care of it. If you're going to ride through the winter, boy, do whatever you can to mitigate rust. That's going to be super, super important. Another item to take care of is your maintenance. I really go by, like, especially oil changes on my bike, I go by miles. Okay, so on my motorcycle, this one right here, I change the oil between 5,000 and 6,000 miles. That's what I do. That's what the book recommends. There's no reason to go, you know, way in front of that or way past that. So that's right about where I go. Now, if I'm getting close at the end of the season, like say I got 4,000 miles on the bike, on the oil, I'll go ahead and change out the oil and the final drive. That's something I do on these LTs. Always, always change the final drive with the oil change. Okay, it's just you're gonna be able to keep ahead of any problems maybe that might start up, and then do the transmission about every other, and then other fluids, you know, per their schedules. But the oil change, okay, if you know, there's some guys that want nice fresh oil in there for the winter. Boy, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to put fresh oil in for the winter, go right ahead. My thing is, I like to like this oil in the bike right now has about, I think it's got about 2,000 miles on it. I'm not going to change it for the winter. There's no reason to. I run the bike, it gets fully warmed up, it gets all the water out of it, and there's no reason to change that, but I probably will change it at the beginning of the season. I'm going to let that oil go through the winter. Then at the beginning of the season, I'm going to start at zero, change out the oil, change out the brake fluid, all that stuff. If you have not maintained your bike in a long time, definitely a good time in the fall to change your oil, change your brake fluid. Get some fresh brake fluid in these things, especially the ones that have the ABS pump on them. Guys, you really want to take care of those pumps. They are failing at an unbelievable rate. That's why I created the bypass kit, the ABS bypass kit, which is still available for this model, as well as the GT models and the RT models and all those ones that had the little electronic servo pump. Man, they seem like they're just dying at just an exponential rate. So do whatever you can to take care of those and put fresh fluid through them every year. Really, do it every year. Go in there and at least flush out your system. Even if your brake fluid looks clean, you can get a little tester. I have them on my Amazon page. They're like a little two-prong battery-operated tester. You just dip it in there, and it'll tell you how much water content is sitting in your brake fluid. And I've had on these bikes where the brake fluid looked just as clear and clean as could be, and it was in the red. It's like, okay, you don't even know that water is getting in there. It's not doing like some color phase change where it's turning black the more water is in it. That's heat cycles, and that's old brake fluid. So guys, change out that brake fluid. Change it out in your clutch as well. You don't want to have issues with your slave cylinder. So anyways, do your maintenance. Another thing that you really want to take care of before you store this thing is to get, if you live in an area that you can find non-ethanol fuel, put non-ethanol fuel in it. You are going to save yourself so much trouble. But I know that so many of you guys out there do not have that opportunity to buy non-ethanol or non-oxygenated fuel. If you have to put in ethanol fuel, boy, just make sure that you put it in late in the season and fill the tank all the way up. And then throughout the winter, on those warm days, we all get the warm days in the winter. Even you guys up in Alaska, you guys get a few warm days here and there where you could maybe go out and start up your bike. Go out there and start up your bike every once in a while in the winter. Maybe just once a month if you can. Even if it's just one time throughout the winter where you can cycle the key and flip that pump over, charge up the system. Maybe even if you don't start it, you just turn the key on so that you run the pump. You're going to save yourself some problems later on down the line where maybe that pump will lock up on you. You guys that have those K1600 bikes, you've seen a lot of those pumps. I don't know if they were built with too tight of a tolerance or what the deal is with those pumps, but they lock up over time. And if you run them, they don't lock up. If you don't run them for a long period of time, sometimes they tend to lock up. So you want to go out there and maybe start the bike up. And if you do start it up in the winter, say it's 50 degrees out one day and you start the bike up, well, if you can, take it for a ride. But if not, at least run the bike long enough so that it's going to warm up to operating temperature and maybe just a little bit beyond, so you can really heat up that oil. You want to get the oil warm enough that it's going to start to evaporate some of the water that you've just ingested through condensation, out of the system. It's going to definitely help. So take care of that if you can. Maybe put it in gear while you're running it on the center stand just to lubricate the seals and everything that are in the transmission and in the final drive. Maybe run your drive shaft around a little bit, or if you've got a belt, you're not going to have too much issue with a belt model. But you really want to these things are meant to move. They're meant to lubricate. They're meant to run. Okay, so you want to run them every once in a while. And another thing is regarding your fuel, go ahead and put a little bit of stabilizer if you're going to be leaving your bike sitting for longer than, say, 60 days. Put a little bit of fuel stabilizer of some brand in there, whether it's the Stable brand or the Lucas brand or whatever. If it says on there that it will help fight against ethanol-related issues, you definitely want to put something in there so that it will do that. Because you're going to, if the longer you leave ethanol in there, and it just sits in there static, there's something chemically that attacks rubber, it attacks the plastic parts, it just starts to, I don't know if it turns to acid, I have no idea. That ethanol is evil stuff. If you do run ethanol, and you're leaving it for long term, and we're talking like 6 months, where you're not going to ride that bike, I really would strongly recommend that during that 6-month period, either you or you have somebody else go over to your bike and pull that fuel out and put new fuel in. Just doing that alone is going to save your pump. It's going to save your rubber and your hoses and all that stuff, because just the presence of ethanol or that alcohol in your fuel is not going to cause damage on your rubber parts or your plastic parts that are inside the tank. Where that damage occurs is when that ethanol sits and sits for a long time, and it's left to sit there, and the octane level drops, and whatever the ethanol content, the water gets in there. Alcohol definitely absorbs water. It brings water in, and it's just all bad. So if you can get rid of that gas and maybe run that through your car and just put some fresh fuel in it, even if you don't run the thing, that's going to help a lot. So guys, that's all I'll say about the ethanol. If you have questions, any questions about stuff, do put them down in the comments. I do read through all the comments, and I'll probably answer your comment. Guys, and if you've got other suggestions or things that you do that you found work really well, please put them down in the comments, by all means. It's a group think, right? How about that? Another thing, rodents. If you live in the Corn Belt like we live, you get mice. Okay, mice are just a factor. If you store it out in a barn or you store it in a shed, you even just storing it under a cover outside, there's a good chance that you're going to get mice. And on this LT, there's a couple areas, maybe 3 areas, but 2 that are really prone to mice. One of them being the airbox. They go up through the tube that's up in the front, and then they make a really nice mouse house right there in front of your air filter, and it can get so bad that it just clogs up your air filter totally, and you can't even run the bike. You're like, oh, why doesn't it run in the spring? Well, there's probably a mouse house in there. It's a very nice house. It's a condominium. The other place is in the very back of the bike, back where the charcoal canister either is or used to be, or where your alarm is, if you haven't already removed that. But boy, I think they make those wires in there right out of peanut butter, because they just love to chew and chew on those wires. And I had a bike here earlier this year that the guy, it was in no start condition, and the first place I looked was in the back of the motorcycle, and the wires were all chewed up. And the moment I just moved them a little bit, they started arcing and smoking. I'm like, oh boy, so I quickly undid the battery and was able to mitigate that from being a problem. If the guy, maybe if he would have got the bike started, the vibration would have been enough to cause a fire in the back of his bike. So do whatever you have to mitigate those areas. Maybe put some mothballs there. There's other products on the market that make things a little bit more mouse proof. Do what you can to mouse proof the area where you're storing your bike, if it's in a barn or a garage, whatever. Just be smart about it. Think like a mouse. Like, oh, those wires, they look pretty good. Maybe I should start chewing on them. And obviously we can't stop everything from happening, but we sure can prevent some things from happening. The last thing is, I really would recommend that you cover your motorcycle. Cover it up with something. Maybe even if it's inside of a garage, at least take an old bed sheet or something and cover it up. That's going to prevent a lot of that fine dust and damage that you get. The grit of winter, the salt powder that comes in. It's just going to prevent a lot, and you're going to be a lot happier in the spring when you pull that cover off and you're like, oh, look at my bike. It's all nice and shiny now. It's ready to roll, and maybe all I got to do is change the oil and inflate the tires, that kind of thing. But guys, most of it is, I want to call it common sense, but maybe some of you guys have never heard this stuff. One more thing, battery. These bikes do go through the battery on their own. They have a clock that's always running. The computer's powered up. Even when the key's off on all of them, all the new ones, all the old ones, everything. put your battery on a maintainer, or at the very least, undo your battery. Undo the negative. If you can get to it easy, and you know, removing the battery is not a massive inconvenience, it's okay. You know, go ahead and unplug the battery. Then it's not going to drain out on you, and still maybe put it on a maintainer. It's going to really help in the spring when you go to start the thing up, and hopefully you're not going to have a whole host of issues again. So anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you appreciate this kind of video and you want to see more like this, definitely check out the links that I have down below. There's some ways down there in which you can help support the work that I do, including through Patreon, or supporting my Amazon page, or looking at my poster that covers this motorcycle and all the torque specs and different information. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one. And my beard will probably be longer too.